Welcome to this tutorial on initialization of arrays in Java. In this method, you can initialize an array by directly assigning values to the elements at the time of declaration. For example, you can declare and initialize an int array with values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as follows. In this method, you can initialize an array by using a loop to assign values to each element. For example, you can declare an int array with a specific size and use a loop to assign values to the elements as follows. In this method, you can initialize an array by using the arrays fill method to assign a specific value to each element. For example, you can declare an int array with a specific size and use the arrays fill method to assign a value to all the elements as follows. In this method, you can initialize an array by using the arrays copyof method to create a new array with a specified length and copy the elements from the original array. For example, you can declare an int array with some initial values and use the arrays copyof method to create a new array with a larger size as follows. In this method, you can initialize an array by using the arrays setAll method to assign values to the array elements using a lambda expression. For example, you can declare an int array with a specific size and use the arrays setAll method with a lambda expression to assign values to the elements as follows. In this method, you can initialize an array by using the Stream API to create and initialize an array with a sequence of values. For example, you can declare and initialize an int array with values from 1 to 5 using the intStream range method as follows. Now, let's dive into the first method of initializing arrays. In this section, we will discuss how to initialize arrays using the new keyword in Java. We will cover the syntax for initializing arrays, initializing an array with specific values, initializing a multidimensional array, accessing elements of an array, and initializing an array with default values. In this code snippet, we are declaring an integer array named numbers, and using the new keyword to initialize it with a size of 5. Moving on to the second method of initializing arrays. In this section, we will discuss initializing arrays in Java using array literals. This approach allows you to directly assign values to an array without using the new keyword. It is a more concise and convenient way of initializing arrays. You can specify the values of the array elements within curly braces, with each element separated by a comma. The array literal can be assigned to a variable of array type or used directly as part of an expression. For example, int numbers equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This program initializes an integer array called numbers with the values 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, let's explore another method of initializing arrays. In the topic of initializing arrays using a for loop, the first step is to declare an array variable and specify its data type, such as int, string, etc. After that, use the new keyword to allocate memory for the array with a specified size. Moving on, after declaring and allocating memory for the array, the next step is to create a for loop and set the iteration variable to 0. Inside the loop, you can assign values to the array elements by accessing them using their indices. Don't forget to increment the iteration variable at the end of each loop iteration. By following these steps, the array will be initialized with the desired values. In this line, we declare an integer array called numbers with a size of 5. In this line, we start a for loop that initializes a variable I to 0, checks if I is less than 5, and increments I by 1 after each iteration. In this line, we assign the value of I plus 1 foot to the ith element of the numbers array. Lastly, let's discuss the initialization of multidimensional arrays. In Java, multidimensional arrays can be initialized using either nested array literals or nested for loops. Nested array literals provide a shorthand way of creating multidimensional arrays. You can define a multidimensional array by using an array of arrays. Each nested array represents a dimension of the multidimensional array. For example, in a 2D array, you can initialize it using nested arrays like int array equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To initialize multidimensional arrays using nested for loops, you can use nested for loops. Nested for loops can be used to iterate over the dimensions of the array and set each element. For example, in a 2D array, you can use nested for loops like this. Int array equals new int 3, 3, 4, int I equals 0, I array, length, I++, 4, int j equals 0, j array, I, length, j++, array, I, j, equals I plus j. Additionally, you can also initialize a multidimensional array with different lengths for each dimension. This is known as a jagged array and can be initialized like int jagged array equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Initializing a jagged array allows you to have different lengths for each row of the array. To access the elements of a multidimensional array, you can use multiple indices. For example, to access the element at row 1, column 2 of a 2D array, you can use array 1, 2. Initializing a multidimensional array using nested array literals or nested for loops gives you flexibility in creating arrays with multiple dimensions in Java.